time for convening has arrived, so we will I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's City Council meeting. I would like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, August the 20th, 2024. Will the City Clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide a public comment at a City Council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of the meetings. Those public comment cards are available online and at the chamber entrance. Those providing public comment may be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson. Here. Councilmember Melody Kelly. Present. Councilmember Melissa Mueller. Here. Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Councilmember Tibby DiGiulio. Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, how many public comment cards do we have?
We've received 2 this evening.
All right.
The first is from Camilla Fonza.
Okay, Ms. Fonza.
All right, and the next is for Bill Griffith.
Mr. Griffin. Is Ms. Fonza here? All right. Mr. Griffin, welcome back.
Mr. Mayor and council members, at the last council meeting, I discussed 3 tweaks to the Roberts Drive Side Path Scope and Study dated May of 24 for your consideration. Now I want to discuss another such tweak. The Roberts Drive Side Path Scoping Report dated March of 24, the Scoping Report, states that, quote, several studies were reviewed to become familiar with previous work conducted in Sandy Springs that would align the scoping report with citywide goals, end quote. One of those studies was titled, quote, Preliminary Alternative Assessment, comma, Improving Bicycle and Pedestrian Connectivity to the CRNRA, the park, by Hagen Hammonds. Note that I said preliminary. I've not seen that preliminary study. However, I have seen another study, another report of Mr. Hammond's study. It's titled, quote, Bike the Hooch, Developing Bicycle Connectivity to the Park, end quote, published in 2016. That report is marked final report and is referred to as the final report. That final report includes an evaluation of 2 alternatives for connecting the park to Roswell. One considered the proposed pedestrian bridge over the river at Highway 9. The other considered a pedestrian bridge over the river using the Georgia 400 columns as support. Let's call that the Alt 1B bridge. That study included meeting with a transportation planner from Sandy Springs. Mr. Hammonds concluded that the Alt 1B bridge that connects to a multi-use trail paralleling 400 south to where Roberts Drive goes under 400 would be just as optimal as a pedestrian bridge at Highway 9. He stated that the Alt 1B route, quote, creates a shorter and more welcoming connection to residential areas in Roswell to access the park, end quote. His report also indicates that such a path would require fewer right-of-way acquisitions than going through a protected neighborhood. I did not see any reference in the scoping report or the scoping study to the final report, and given Mr. Hammond's conclusion and his having met with a city employee, that puzzles me. Tweak number 4. Ignore tweaks 2 and 3, and rather than cut through the protected neighborhood on Roberts Drive and incur exorbitant topography-related costs, modify Phase 2 as follows. A, include an analysis of the cost of the Alt 1B route. B, depending on that analysis, use that Alt 1B route to connect to the proposed Phase 2 path. And C, provide for only filling in the sidewalk gaps on Roberts Drive west of 400. Thank you.
Mr. Griffin, thank you. Any others?
No.
All right, we'll close the public comment period. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve the meeting agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item, the approval of the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, August 20th.
Ms. Rochelle moves approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved. Moving to presentations. Chief Sanders, come give us some good news.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excited tonight to ask Mike Morris, is the Vice President of Community Hazardous Mitigation with Verisk ISO. He's coming here tonight to make a presentation to the city.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, I appreciate you taking a moment to allow me to make a presentation. So back in September, Verisk ISO, as we're known as, made a visit to the city to do an evaluation on what we call the public protection ISO rating, which is based upon your insurance discounts that the insurance companies apply to properties, residential and commercial. During that assessment period, when we did evaluation, we evaluated the Sandy Springs Fire Department and its members that participate in the evaluation, which is the 911 Center and the water utility departments. While we did the evaluation, the determination that we found in the overall process is the Sandy Springs Fire Department ended up evaluating as what we consider a Class 1 fire department. Class 1 fire department is very few across the country. As we evaluate 36,000 departments across the nation, across the country, I should say, there is limited to about 1% of those are actually Class 1s. Sandy Springs falls into that family of Class 1s with the Verisk family. So I just want to take a moment to congratulate the hard work that Sandy Springs Fire Department did, along with its partners, to come to this point to give the benefits of that to the residents and the property owners in this community. So, Chief, congratulations.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you.
And the certificate shows our appreciation to the hard work that you and your members do
Thank you so
every
much,
day.
Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Chief, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
recognizing what we have always known, that we have one of the best fire departments anywhere on the planet. And your recognition of that just simply reinforces what we have always believed. But it's always good to have the experts come in and evaluate us and concur with our opinion. So thank you very much, Chief. Thanks to you, your whole team,
Yes,
for being able to, I see them, some of them back here, including Reggie, sitting up there by himself. He looks so lonely. Nobody will sit with Reggie anymore. I don't know what the problem is. But anyway, we were just, the work that your team has done to get us to this point is greatly, greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to public hearings. Will the clerk please read the first item?
Agenda item number 2024-210. This is consideration of an ordinance to set the ad valorem, tax rate for the city of Sandy Springs. This is also the third public hearing presented by City Manager Eden Freeman.
Ms. Freeman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is the third and final public hearing to establish the millage rate for the city of Sandy Springs for the 2024 tax year. These figures have already been brought in line with our FY25 budget, which Council approved at the end of June. We are establishing the tax rate at the same rate that is set in the city charter and has been the same rate ever since our incorporation in 2005 of 4.731 mils. I'm happy to answer any questions if council may have them.
All right, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the city manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2024-210, passing the ordinance to set the ad valorem tax rate of the city of Sandy Springs as described.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2024-210, an ordinance to set the ad valorem tax rate for the city of Sandy Springs. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Mr. Mayor, this is the 19th time I've had the pleasure of seconding this agenda item on here, and I have to say that all we can say with Sandy Springs, it's refreshing that Sandy Springs lives within its means, and it's a good example to the rest of the country to live within our means. And so it's our pleasure to go ahead and to continue to operate Sandy Springs on a fiscally responsible basis.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-210, approving an ordinance to set the ad valorem tax rate for the city of Sandy Springs. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-211. This is the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report Draft, presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Ms. McIntosh Ross.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. There is no action that will be required tonight. This is a required public hearing for the Consolidated Performance and Evaluation Report, also known as the CAPER. The CAPER is the compilation of the project activities and accomplishments associated with the city's CDBG program over the previous fiscal year. This is a required report for the city's continued participation in the program. Staff has prepared a draft of the 2023 CAPER according to the requirements for the submission to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. As you know, the funds received from the CDBG program have been designated to design and construct public facilities, that is, sidewalks along Roswell Road to benefit low to moderate income persons in the community, which meets the program's national objective. In summary, the progress of the report during the reporting time period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th of 2023 has been in accordance with the goals of the 2023 Annual Action Plan. We are moving forward with the infrastructure projects, that is Phase 3 of the South Roswell Road multi-year sidewalk project, design and environmental work, sidewalk and streetscape improvement along Roswell Road south of I-285 from Northwood Drive to Long Island Drive, and this is on the west side of Roswell Road. These projects include ADA sidewalk ramps, street lights, pedestrian lighting, all in towards connecting the community, improving walkability, providing access to transit, work, school, medical facilities, and shopping conveniences, all in accordance with the national objective. The draft 2023 CAPER has been posted to the city's website for public review since July 31st. No comments have been received, but again, no action is required tonight. I'm scheduled to be back here before you, the Mayor and City Council, on October 1st with a resolution asking you to authorize the submission of the 2023 CAPER to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comment cards?
We do not.
All right, then we will close the public hearing, and you'll be back to take action on the 1st of October.
Thank you.
Moving to new business, will the clerk please read the first item?
Agenda item number 2024-212. This is consideration to authorize city staff to submit a supplemental planning and demonstration safety action plan grant application to the United States Department of Transportation for the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, to approve the required local funding match and to authorize the city manager to execute the same. This is presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. I think you're all aware of the Safe Streets studies we have underway right now. To that end, the U.S. Department of Transportation provided the city with a safety action plan planning grant in the amount of some $360,000 in February of 2023, with the city required to provide a 20% local match or $90,000 in addition to prepare that study that's underway. When all completed, we hope that they then become, with an accepted safety implementation plan, implementation grants associated with this safety action plan that's currently under development. An additional opportunity has come our way through a notice of funding opportunity from the USDOT
to provide additional, or what's termed supplemental planning and demonstration grant funds for this work that we have underway. With that said, I'd like to ask Kristen Westcott to please give you an update on the status of studies currently and our intentions to apply for additional planning grants based on this recent notice that we might be able to pursue to augment the study.
Ms. Westcott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are asking for your approval this evening to submit a grant application for a supplemental planning and demonstration grant for additional funds under the United States Department of Transportation Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So as you know, we did begin this grant program process just about 2 years ago with our first grant application so that we could undertake a safety action plan, which we have dubbed the Safe Streets for Sandy Springs. That study is currently underway, and we will be back to you soon. We actually have public meetings coming up next Thursday, the 29th, that we hope everybody can attend, but we need to wrap that up with the draft plan by this October and a final plan in January, and with a final submittal to the Federal Highway by May. I don't see a clicker up here next. Thank you so much. So just a highlight on that current study. We have found in this time period that we've looked at from 2018 to 2022 that there have been nearly 28,000 crashes in the city. Of those, 38 have been fatal crashes, and over 200 have been serious injury crashes. One of the elements of the Safe Streets and Roads for All program is to be facility blind, I guess, is we're not looking at who owns the roads, we're looking at where the crashes are occurring and where the severity of the crashes are. And so we have included both Interstate 285 and State Route 400, as well as the two surface state routes, State Route 9 and State Route 140, which is Holcomb Bridge Road, in the study. And so with that said, we have found that 2/3 of the crashes that are occurring on that state system, and only 1/3 are occurring on city-owned streets. Next. So with this current grant, we do have additional funding to undertake supplemental planning and demonstration projects. And I think a question always comes up is what a demonstration activity is. So under the Notice of Funding Opportunity, a demonstration activity is a temporary safety improvement, and it does not involve any permanent roadway reconstruction, but it's an opportunity for us as a city to look at some of the findings from our safety action plan, where we can identify some short-term mitigation strategies, apply those, and evaluate them to see if they are successful. And then, if so, then we would move on to a full implementation. So, with that said, some of the eligible activities include supplemental safety planning, feasibility studies, roadway departure evaluations, looking at education campaigns, looking at ways to mitigate crashes due to impaired driving, and safety warning systems. Next. Specifically, some of the things that we would like to do under this demonstration grant and planning grant would be to update our crash data. So I know that it sounds like we just started our study, but at the time that we started our study, the full year of 2023 data was not available. And so that would be something that we'd want to add to our crash database that we've developed for the safety action plan. We'd also like to conduct road safety audits, which is sort of a feet on the ground corridor evaluation where you bring in public safety officials, transportation, and others to look at, how people are interacting in an environment. And that's really driven by what does the crash pattern look like, and really focusing also on where we have vulnerable road users, where we have high incidences of conflicts with pedestrians or bicyclists and vehicles, or motorcyclists. So that's one of the things we're proposing. We'd also like to continue, as part of the safety action plan right now, we have to come up with a process for annual reporting and kind of creating a dashboard. How are we doing? And so we can enhance that. And then just in terms of that demonstration activity, some of the temporary things is looking at maybe there's some opportunities for doing a quick build roundabout. Also doing I have an example of that. So I know it's a real project, or a designed project takes some time, but other communities have had some success doing these demonstration projects to see if they could be successful. Also, we can take this program and go through a feasibility study to see what kind of treatments would be appropriate for some of our concerned intersections. And then looking at some of the locations where we might need to mitigate wrong-way driving. Next. So just some examples here. This is actually an example from Jackson, Georgia. And so everything that was applied here, it looks like, a full roundabout, but actually it was done with temporary materials. So rubberized curbing and striping. Next. This is just a diagram that shows, what it looks like for a wrong-way driver interaction, where there's actually physical alerts and sort of a trip system through radar that would alert a driver if they were entering the wrong way, say onto 285 from New Northside, Powers Ferry area. Or
I've seen 3 wrong-way drivers on Northside within the last month, and that's just me happened
Right.
to be there. So
And that-
it's an ongoing problem.
Right, and that's something that we recognized in that Powers Ferry study that we did, that we do have that wrong way driving there. So, next. So with that said, our next steps, if you approve this grant application tonight, we'll prepare a grant application, and we've identified some of these opportunities, and we do have, if it is awarded, we will come back to you and we can discuss in greater detail the specifics. And by the time we were awarded this, if we get awarded that, we will have more results from our safety action plan, because that will be complete. The last time we applied for this grant, it took about 6 months for us to find out if we received the money. So with that said, the question is, will we get the money? Well, the focus of Safe Streets and Roads for All have been on all communities to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes, but then there also has been a special focus on communities that have a large disadvantaged population, so either from income or access to transportation. So in Sandy Springs, that's a relatively smaller group of people. Also looking at communities where they have higher fatal crash rates, and actually this is a blessing that although we do have a fatal crash rate experience, ours is less than some other communities in the average. But moving forward, we will be preparing the application and have to submit it by next Thursday. So with that said, I open for any questions you may have.
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Department. What is the desire of council? Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve agenda item 2024-212, authorize city staff to submit a supplemental planning and demonstration safety action plan grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation for the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program.
Motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second? Moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2024-212, authorizing city staff to submit a supplemental planning and demonstration safety action grant application. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
So next week, we're going to have the open houses. Can you go through a little bit about what is going to be at the open house and what we're looking for residents to think about before they come?
Right. Our consultant that we've been working with over the past few months have really dug down into that data that we have, those 27,000 crashes, with a particular focus on the fatal and serious injury crashes, but identifying locations where we have the high injury crash segments, also intersections, starting to really figure out what some of the factors are that are contributing to these crashes, whether it be aggressive driving, distracted driving, so that really all of the different elements you can think that contribute to crashes that will be there. And what we want to hear back from the community is, one, confirmation that we're identifying the right projects and the right things. And the other conversation about that is moving forward. So we've done all this data analysis and we've identified where some of these problems are. Where should the city put its focus on its investments? And I think the unique thing, as I'd mentioned before in previous discussions about the Safety Action Plan, SS4A goes beyond just engineering solutions. And so much of what we do when we get in a vehicle or if we're walking, it has to do with our behavior, right? So there's so many other ways that we can try to change the trajectory of how people interact with each other, whether they're walking or biking or driving or riding transit. And so I think that's really pretty interesting that the implementation grants that they want to fund post these plans are not just infrastructure projects where we're building a new intersection like a roundabout. We're also looking at how our public safety partners can help parents and other caregivers install like child safety seats properly, or find the right seat, right? Or even have grant programs for low-income families to be able to, get those, because children, by far, in a vehicle, are some of our most vulnerable transportation people. So that is really where we're headed right now with our safety task force. We've been meeting on a quarterly basis, and so within that group, we have communications, obviously public works, community development, police and fire, and our IT with GIS. And so we've been talking through both what the consultant has sort of uncovered looking at the data, but also now that we are sort of seeing some of these trends, how do we address them? So.
Ms. Mueller.
So on the one diagram, Kristen, it showed alerts. I think it was for when the mayor brought up about the wrong way driving.
Right.
Is that visual, or is that flashing, or is it even like a technology oriented where it could communicate with the modules that are in the new cars to actually come across your, inside your vehicle?
Well, I know across the country, a lot of different technologies are being investigated for mitigating wrong way crashes, because especially wrong way crashes on a controlled access facility like State Route 400 or 285 often end very tragically. This particular example is more of a system where it detects a vehicle heading the wrong direction, and then there would be, more of an active,
like flashing lights or
right,
something like that.
rather than just, right now at all of our interchanges, we just have static signs that just say, do not enter, wrong way. You hope that people are paying attention. But we know a lot of times that in wrong way crashes, people that are impaired or sleep deprived, there's other factors that are contributing to that behavior, and you need something a little bit more to get their attention. The other thing that has been investigated actually is that tying to a traffic management center. So, the state DOT and we both have traffic management centers, and so that when these, especially onto the state system, alerts are triggered, that the traffic management center is then triggered, that can then dispatch on their proper public safety officials to try to intervene. So, which is a pretty neat way to, to bring it all together.
I alerted one of the wrong way drivers with my horn, and she showed her appreciation by saying I was the #1 mayor she knew. So, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, that's good, by the way. Two questions. One is, this slide shows that U.S. DOT is going to prioritize grant applications to cities that have 17 fatalities per 100,000. We're half that. So I guess a practical question is, what are the odds of us actually getting this if we're half the crash rate that they're looking for?
Right.
So I'm asking to weigh in on that, and then I got another question. But first
Sure.
things first.
Well, with that said, we think because we're already a recipient of the Safety Action Plan in their system, we feel pretty good about that, and that we're undertaking the Safety Action Plan and actually can turn it into a demonstration project pretty readily. The other part of that is that when the USDOT created this program, or the Congress, they funded this planning element pretty substantially. And it has been our experience that if you ask for money, they'll probably award it.
You sold me.
So
I was just asking.
yeah, no, and we are on the third round. There were 2 earlier rounds this year for this same grant, but we were not far enough along in our study to really be able to identify, the proper activities to take on. So
Okay. Thank you. And the second question I've got is, you had a slide that talked about developing a awareness plan to stop distracted driving. I heard on the radio the other day that some majority of the crashes, and a high percentage of the crashes, are attributed to distracted driving. And I forget the number, but it's like 60%, something like that, okay? So with that, go ahead. So you're going to say something?
no, go on.
So with that, my request is, let's not wait to see if we get this grant. Can we begin to put a program together to start this tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Whether we get this grant or not, we should address this because it's just so prevalent.
I absolutely agree. And with our safety task force, and that's why it's so important to have all of the different departments involved. But we are overrepresented in Sandy Springs with distracted driving crashes.
What does that mean? We're overrepresented.
So when we do a lot of crash evaluation, we compare it against, say, the statewide experience, some other
And
entity.
we have more distracted driving crashes than others?
Yes,
That's what overrepresented means?
correct.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and the state, actually, to their credit, the Georgia Department of Transportation has developed some fantastic analysis tools that all local jurisdictions can use, whether you're a city or a county, to really dig down and look at where those are occurring and on what corridors or what intersections. And so,
And what to do about it?
right, and
Something to
that's the
study. It's another
behavioral part
try
is
stop
the thing that we're all grappling with, right? Because within all, I'm a social science background with political science, right? And so to affect people's behavior and changes, we do that actually through our roadway design right now, but then really campaigns on a communication side or marketing to actually get people's attention these days when they're hit by so many things. So, I think it's a lot for us to think about and how we're going to do that. But I think there's a lot of ways to do that. Some communities are using, say, the message boards as safety tools for short duration projects. I know that a couple years ago we sat in on a webinar. Again, it's trying to hit somebody's behavior, but after, say, a fatal crash had occurred, the community deliberately advertised that through using message boards to say this happened here, slow down, or whatever the safety message was.
Okay.
And
I
so
get it.
there's just a lot of ways you can go with that, but I agree with you 100% that the city needs to have a more holistic plan for addressing all of these issues.
My request is, rather than wait for this money
Correct.
to start looking at this,
Yes,
I ask that
absolutely.
we start looking at this now.
Yes,
Right. Looking at it doesn't cost a lot of money at this point, but
correct.
any good ideas that can stop this, I think we should implement whether we get this grant money or not. So that's my
And
request.
we would like to
you
hear
and
that
staff.
next Thursday at the public meeting too, right, from the community, from all of you, to give that input of what you think those programs could look like.
I gave you my input just now.
I know.
Okay?
I appreciate that. We got a head start.
That's what I'd like to see us do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. Call the question. Questions on agenda item 2024-212. Motion authorizing the city staff to submit a supplemental planning and demonstration safety action plan grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation for the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-213. This is consideration to approve an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Sandy Springs, Georgia, and the Fulton County Board of Education for the use of city facilities as emergency shelter or evacuation point by Fulton County Schools, and to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Presented by Fire Chief Keith Sanders.
Chief Sanders.
Mayor and council, before you is an agreement to enter with the Fulton County Board of Education for the use of the city facilities as emergency shelters, evacuations. The city manager and I met with their representative and worked out this agreement. It will allow for students and faculty of Fulton County schools located within the city limits of Sandy Springs to utilize city-owned facilities in the event of emergency or disaster situation that require immediate evacuation of the school. And I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, you've heard the report of the fire chief. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2024-213, approve an intergovernment agreement by and between the City of Sandy Springs, Georgia, Fulton County Board of Ed for the use of city facilities to authorize the emergency shelter or evacuation point by Fulton County schools and to authorize mayor to execute same.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2024-213, an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs and Fulton County School Board for the use of city facilities as emergency shelter or evacuation points. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
So, Chief, what are we talking about here? Like City Hall or fire stations? What is your thinking regarding this?
City Hall would be utilized. We could access the fire stations if need be, but primarily auditorium areas should we have, God forbid, a mass casualty incident or some type of bad incident and they had to evacuate, that we could have this as a holding facility for them until they could, reunite with their family members. Or the school system have a plan.
So it's mostly City Hall that you're thinking of?
That's correct.
Okay.
And if I could clarify, just one add to that, what their actual request was to be able to utilize the city green as a reunification point, especially as they're doing construction at North Springs High School. They're not going to have their football fields available for children and parents to be reunited. That is what is driving this request and why it's coming forward right now.
Great, thank you.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Chief, would the city be required for any transportation of children back and forth to a safety facility here, or would the schools take care of that?
The school would.
Schools would.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-213, approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs and the Fulton Board of Education for the use of city facilities as emergency shelters and evacuation. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to reports, got a few things here to give everybody a quick update on. First of all, the city manager and the city attorney and I accompanied the chief of police to the Capitol yesterday, where he was sworn in as a member of the Georgia Homeland Security Board. A great honor to our chief, and now he has to actually do some work. But congratulations, Chief, on that. It's a great honor to be nominated by the governor for something like this. Last week, I was on the annual Atlanta Regional Commission link trip to New York City. These trips are an annual trip where leaders from the metro Atlanta area go to a different city every year, and we interact with their governmental officials. We learn a lot about how they solve problems, how they approach problems. New York's problems are a little bit, on an order of magnitude, slightly larger than those in Sandy Springs. But you still facing the same problems. How do you convert office buildings to residential? How do you creatively use your zoning laws to facilitate redevelopment of areas that are blighted or deteriorating? And so there was a lot of discussion about that. I had the opportunity to go on the visit a Sandy Springs-based company while I was there. It's otherwise known as the New York Stock Exchange. It's a nice company, and we spent Friday at the New York Stock Exchange and had a chance to go down for the closing bell on Friday. And it was an eye-opening. We spent the day there talking to financial and economic development people from their region. In this room, before I left, we had the Council for Quality Growth. I was on a panel of mayors talking about how we're approaching redevelopment and some of the challenges that we face. And then, of course, 2 weeks ago tonight, we had National Night Out, which was a phenomenally successful event. Thanks to all the folks who were involved in putting that together and making it happen. As usual, it was just a great way to allow our residents and citizens to interact with our first responders, get a chance to see what they do, see the equipment they use, and build those relationships, which are so important in today's world about when it comes to public safety. So that's kind of my quick overview. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a follow-up question to Chief Sanders. Chief Sanders, if you give me a second here. So we had a presentation that our ISO rating is now moved to a level 1 or category 1 or class 1, whatever it is. So what's the practical significance of this to the residents of Sandy Springs to get this rating of 1?
Okay, Councilman, what will take place is the new rating went into effect June 1st, and at your next insurance renewal, if there's a change in your insurance premium, it should occur at the next renewal. Keep in mind that most insurance companies utilize VERSIC and the ISO ratings. Some do not in evaluating and coming up with premiums, but I would encourage everyone to check with their insurance provider. And if you don't see a change, I would look at the market and see if there's different premiums, because it should have an impact. It will have a dramatic impact on the commercial insurance carriers or commercial properties within the community. It has a major impact there, especially with economic development. It's something that really needs to be advertised there for the commercial. But I would check with your insurance companies and ask them. But usually if it's going to change, it's your next renewal. It'll take about 90 days, they say, before they get the information from VERSIC.
And so does VERSIC send this to all the insurance companies?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the change theoretically would be a reduction.
That's correct.
But right now, premiums seem to be going up. And so it would be, hopefully, at worst, a reduction in the increase.
When we went to you should have seen, if you're going to see a reduction, you should have seen it when we went from a 3/6 down to a 2 rating. And then the 1, there's some insurance companies recognize that and give a premium reduction to homeowners, but predominantly it is in the commercial area where they'll see the property owners that own the commercial properties will see a significant decrease.
It's worth asking anyway.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One thing that I failed to mention, many of you remember Jack McElfish, who was our previous fire chief. Jack is very ill, and please keep Jack and his family in our thoughts and prayers. Ms. Rochelle.
I want to remind everybody that there's a groundbreaking for the new North Springs High School on August 27th at 10 a.m., and I'd love for everybody to come.
Anything else? Any staff reports?
Nothing tonight.
All right. We need a hopefully very brief executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move that we suspend regular order and move into executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we suspend regular order and move into executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the approval of the executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are in executive session. This will be no further business conducted tonight. We will simply return to this room after the executive session, end the executive session, return to regular order, and adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not quite 1 minute.
Yeah, still short.
She starts Monday. Oh, I thought she already started. Oh, okay, she starts Monday.
Just all the, the stuff you have to do.
Good. She has everything she needs?
I think she does.
Okay, good.
Just trip over that.
2, 3. There's 4. We got
There's
4.
4.
Mayor Paul, I move that we close out executive session. We're back in the regular order.
Also moves that we close the executive session, seconded by Mr. Giuliano. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the return to regular order. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are in regular order. Mr. Mayor, I move adjournment.
Second.
Giuliano moves adjournment, seconded by Mr. Paulson. All in favor?
Aye.